What's up, everybody? Today I am going to talk to you about some books for middle school age kids that are very new, just came out, and that I think are awesome books that you can include in your classroom library, or if you just have middle-aged kids at home, these are some great new books for them to read, and I'm going to talk about them and review them. And if you have any questions about any of these books, just leave a comment and be sure to subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this and smash that like button for me. All right, let's get started with a new version of sort of like Lord of the Flies, but with boys and girls, not just boys, right? This book is called Wild River by Rodman Philbrick. This book is very adventurous. This is like an adventure survival fiction type book. It is about some kids that are going to this camp to do some whitewater rafting. And so like they're sleeping in the camp, preparing for the next day when they're gonna go whitewater rafting. And then all of a sudden, our main protagonist, his name is Daniel, he wakes up in the middle of the night, right? And everybody's screaming because all of a sudden the dam has broken and the whole camp is about to be underwater in like no time. So they're freaking out, running around. And then essentially the kids make it and the counselors, the adults, do not make it. So it's like a kids only survival type of thing. And so they have to survive in the wilderness with like barely any food, barely any supplies. And it's actually very exciting, very well written. It's not that long and the chapters are pretty short. So it's like a fast read for middle school kids. And I think Wild River, if your student or your kid enjoys action, adventure, nature, wilderness, if they know anything, because like a lot of my kids have never been whitewater rafting. They don't know what that's like. They don't know what that's about. I've never been whitewater rafting. And so reading this was just very interesting and exciting. My next book is a scary book. It's very creepy horror fiction, and it's the new book called Hide and Seeker by Daka Herman. Like, I don't know if I'm saying that right. But Hide and Seeker was very creepy. The cover alone just makes my kids really want to reach for this one because they love scary books for some reason. They really love like the creepy, or they'll see this and they'll go, ooh, I want to read that. And so I've had a lot of my kids in my class read this book and they've all really enjoyed it. It's about the game hide and seek, right? So there's this boy that has been gone, like this boy disappeared and all of a sudden this boy comes back and he's like acting kind of differently. Anyway, his friends have a party and at the party they play hide and seek, and it's really creepy and just really well written to give you those like creepy vibes. And then all of a sudden after they play this game, all the kids have this mark on their wrist. And then they get pulled into this shadow world. And there's like creepy shadow world stuff. And there's this creepy shadow monster who's like seeking them, the seeker. And they basically have to defeat the seeker. And it's just really good. It's a little bit of a chunk. It's longer than Wild River. But it's definitely a good creepy book for kids who are interested in that. All right, the next book is Ikenga, written by Inedi Okorafor. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. But this is a great book for any students or kids who are kind of into superhero. It takes place in Nigeria, which is very refreshing to have books in your library whose setting is, not the United States. We live in the United States. It's just nice to have more diverse books, more diverse authors, more diverse settings. This one is extremely interesting to read. I've never really read a book like Ikenga. So it starts off with Inamdi. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. But he is our protagonist. It's this boy right here. And unfortunately, at the beginning of our book, his father is murdered. So it's like a dark superhero origin type of story because he finds this little statue and it's like an ancient symbol of their culture type of thing. And it essentially gives him superpowers, right? So it reminded me kind of like Spider-Man, kind of like Black Panther, kind of like, it's very superhero-y, but it's like dark superhero. He wants to avenge his father's death, but he has to learn to control the powers. And it's just really good. A lot of my boys gravitate towards this one, not so much my girls, but it's a very nice book, very well written. Again, it's kind of like a chunk, but my kids have all enjoyed. My kids who have read this book have all really enjoyed it. The next book I have is a graphic novel, and kids love graphic novels. They read them more, they read them faster. It's more like a, comic book to them. So The Dragon Path by Ethan Young is perfect for my middle school kids. Excuse me. It's all about Prince Sing and the Wong clan, which he is a part of, versus the Dragon tribe. And it's like, when it's like, talk about dragons, there's not really any like dragons in this. It's dragon people, like dragon walking on two legs, dragon people, warriors or whatever. And they have to make it down the dragon path or whatever. And he gets separated. There's like a unicorn cat. It's very exciting. And it is really beautifully like illustrated, wonderful. It takes place, in an ancient old world, which reminds me kind of like of Asian vibes. It's awesome. And I really like this book. I read this book in like 2 hours. Very good book. All right, the next book I'm going to talk about is a very small book, and it is a nonfiction book. It is very colorful. Excuse me. But it is called, this book is Anti-Racist, 20 Lessons on How to Wake Up, Take Action, and Do the Work by Tiffany Jewell, illustrated by Aurelie Durand. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, Miss Durand. But I love this book, and I love it when my kids read this book because it answers the question, what is racism? What is anti-racism? What is prejudice? What's the difference between prejudice and racism? What's the difference between race and ethnicity? How to take action against racism if you see it happening. And it's got a whole section about like, who am I? Self-identity. And my middle school kids are finding out their self-identity right now. Like that is a major life crisis for them. And this book has a whole section about discovery. Excuse me. All right, the last book that I want to mention is kind of like an honorable mention, but it's definitely one to include in your library or buy for your child. It is this poetry book called Woke, A Young Poet's Call to Justice. And I'm sorry that a guy is cutting grass right outside this window, so it might be kind of loud. But this book is just beautifully illustrated, and it's very diverse. It's very inclusive. It talks about things like social justice, activism, discrimination, empathy. It's all poems about stuff like that. And this particular poem, Orchard of We, I like scan this page and I use this poem when I teach figurative language because there is literally an example of each of the 8 types of figurative language in this poem. So I really like this, probably my favorite poem in the book, but it's just got so many other poems and it's big. It's like a children's book, but it's just very wonderful. I love this book so much. All right, that is all. I hope that helped you guys. Give you some examples of some books you can include in your library because I know it's really important this year in 2023 to have very diverse classroom libraries, and all these books contribute to your libraries and just make them great. And if you have any questions about any of these books, just comment below, and I will see you next time.